Hi there, I'm Scott, and this is GreatScott Knitting, and this is my blog podcast thingy, and it's episode 18. Actually, this is kind of an auspicious episode because 18 in Hebrew is Chai. Actually, it's written as the letters Chet and Yud, which spell out the word Chai. Chai means life. So if you remember the song from Fiddler on the Roof, L'chaim, L'chaim, to life. Yeah, that's what 18 is. It's a very important number for Jewish people. When we give to charity, or what we sometimes will call tzedakah, we give in increments of 18 because Chai, or 18, means life. Chai. If you see those little pendants where it has like, it kind of looks like a deer or an elk, but it's actually the letters Chet and Yud. You can see it here on my title slide in the background. There's the Chet and the Yud right there where it says Chai, life. Yeah, so 18. Here we are. So if you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back and continuing to watch the craziness that is this podcast. And if you're new to this channel and to this podcast, thanks for coming by to check it out. I hope you like what you find here. Today is March 6th. Wow, March 6th already of 2021. And I'm coming to you from Wichita, Kansas, where it is a beautiful sunny day and it is 65 degrees. Absolutely lovely today. My husband told me it's going to be in the 80s on Wednesday. That's ridiculous. This is March. We just got out of the deep freeze. That can only mean one thing: storms. It's going to be stormy next week. If it's going to have that big of a temperature swing, we're going to have some storms. And it is that time of year, especially for Wichita. Wichita is right here in the middle of Tornado Alley. We have a basement. So, yeah, so that's kind of the weather here in Wichita today. Anyway, so this is a knitting vlog podcast thingy. And so let's talk about some knitting. So it has been 2 weeks since I last did a vlog. And in that 2-week period of time, I have been working at a real job for like around 42, 43 hours a week. So my amount of time dedicated to knitting has been curtailed. During this past year of COVID, of course, I had the opportunity to do lots of knitting because I was also job hunting. So lots of downtime. But I was able to get one thing done over this past couple of weeks. And one thing cast on. And lots of things ignored. But anyway, I had cast on one of my marking time shawls, and it is completed. And here is what it looks like. Really quite lovely. I really like it. It's pretty. I like how it turned out. This is my pattern that I just recently came up with and published on... Oh, this one's backwards. And published it on Ravelry. So if you're interested in this shawl pattern, it's kind of a shawlette because it's only one skein of fingering weight yarn. But it's actually just quite perfect for a nice light scarf if it's going to be breezy out, or you don't want something and you wanted this pop of color. Poof, there it is. Okay, so anyway, This is the Marking Time Shawl by me, GreatScott Knitting. And the yarn that I used is some yarn that I dyed myself. This is Dyer Supplier Fingering Singles. So this is a single ply fingering weight yarn. It's really lovely to work with. I had used it on the other example of this shawl that I did, which is back here in the craziness. But yeah, it's nice to work with. It works up really light and lovely. It has a nice drape. Of course, single ply yarn is really nice for shawls and open and lacy work. So yeah, so this worked out really nicely with this particular pattern that I created basically for this yarn. And I love how the colors sort of flashed and pooled, and I know some people don't like that whole pooling thing like it's doing right over here. But I don't know, it kind of, to me, it adds a little bit of interest. Anyway, I like this item, and is the one thing I got done over the past couple of weeks in terms of knitting. And I didn't get any dyeing done except for early this morning, so there's nothing to show for it yet. It's still cooking, as one might say. So that leads me to what are my works in progress. So works in progress, of course, I have the blanket that I've been working on, which, to be honest, I have not knit a stitch on that in 2 weeks. So there's not really much to show for it. The pattern I am using, although loosely, I've got to say, I am loosely using this pattern, is the Grandma Birdie's baby blankets, and I'm using it primarily for that block pattern. That's really all I'm doing. Basically sort of cast on the number of repeats I wanted, and with the border I like, and off and running. But I need to put some time in on this blanket before it gets too hot to do it. I'm also have a flax sweater on the needles, which again I have not made any progress on in the past. Well, no, I got to take that back. I have actually everything's falling out. I have actually put in exactly I think 2 rows on this since I last showed it to you, but I will show it to you anyway. There it is. Let me get rid of the pattern from Ravelry. But anyway, there's my flax sweater coming along ever so slowly. Again, I really probably should get to cracking on this before it's too warm to even think about knitting a sweater here in Wichita, Kansas, where it is likely to be a scorcher if it's going to be 80 in March. So there's those 2 things. Which leads me to the things I actually have been working on, because they are small and they are simple and they are easy to do while I'm sitting and watching Zoom meetings. That is the Close to You shawl, which I cast on recently. I have done this one many times. The Close to You shawl is by Justina Lorkowski. It's a lovely shawl. It's very similar to a lot of other little shawls that are out there. The lovely thing about this is it's free. And I, in my life as a knitter, have been all about free patterns. Only recently have I started investing in paid-for patterns. Actually, a bit more since I've become a designer and have really been paying attention to making sure that before I put out a design pattern that it's correct, and I realize how much work that takes, and I'm like, I deserve a couple pennies for that. So I started buying more patterns. But anyway, Be that as it may, here is my progress on the Close to You shawl using the yarn of Louisa Harding's Amatola yarn in the colorway of Tango. I have 2 balls or skeins of this yarn that I am using. It is a 80% wool, 20% silk blend of yarn, and it is just absolutely lovely. It's very, very pretty. I love the colors. They're pretty close to true on here, but yeah. So anyway, this is coming along. It'll be really quite lovely when it is done. So that has been coming along. So it's really it's garter stitch with a couple of double yarn with this double yarn over border, lace border thing going on. So very, very simple. Don't have to really think about it, and don't have to look at pattern. Perfect. The other thing I have going on in terms of knitting my works in progress is March socks. For those of you who may be new, I have committed to knitting 1 pair of socks per month at a minimum throughout 2021. I have not traditionally been a sock knitter until I recently committed to knitting a pair of socks, an actual 2 sets of socks on sock needles using sock yarn in a proper fashion. The method by which I did this was to purchase and use Nathan Taylor's Sockmatician's Toe Up. Nathan Taylor has a blog on YouTube called Sockmatician. It hasn't been on as much recently, but he has a nice catalog of episodes to review. But he has this wonderful sock pattern. It's more of a sock recipe because basically you take your measurements and do a few calculations, and voila, you have the basic instructions you need for a sock. It is a toe-up sock, which I really like because I could, try them on as I went. And so now I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm comfortable with this pattern that I really don't have to look at the pattern anymore. I'm comfortable with my numbers and my measurements that I don't have to mess with that too much anymore to be able to get past the gusset and the heel turn and the heel and get into the leg. So really this is the only fiddly part is right here, probably as with any sock. Everything else is just knitting round and round and round. And for me, the toe is really super simple. So I'm almost done with sock number 1. Oh, the yarn I am using is some yarn that I recently picked up. So I won't talk about this again later, but Lion Brand's Mani Pedi, which is a 75% wool, 25% nylon yarn that comes in 50-gram balls, so about 1 sock per ball. So if you want a pair of socks, you're going to need to buy 2. If you just want it for a hat, you could probably get away with 1. But yeah, so they kind of have this setup to where, oh yeah, you need to buy 2, which makes it about probably $10 for a pair of socks. But that's not bad. Maybe 12. Yeah, so that's coming along. So I have no doubt that I will have a lovely pair of striped socks in the colorway of Crew, which is really just a fancy name for kind of a rainbow that's very heavily into the green side of things. So these really dark stripes are just a very, very deep green. And I also like that how some of the colors have bled over into the other stripes. I kind of like that. I don't have to have my stripes being pristine. Okay. So those are my works in progress. As far as casting on, I have two small projects. One is a shawl, one's a pair of socks, and then I have my sweater and my blanket, which are my big projects, which I'm really not paying much attention to. I think maybe I'll spend a little time on those tomorrow after the house cleaning is done and yard work is done tomorrow evening. As I'm winding down, maybe I'll put in a couple of rows on each of those. Yeah, so that's potentially the plan. No casting on right now because when you're working a little over 40 hours a week, there's not a lot of extra time. Okay, cool. Acquisitions. What have I picked up? I did get a paycheck. So, which means I went and got some small things. I do have some intention of supporting local dyers, small indie dyers, and my local yarn shop. But I can't do it all at once. I was going to go to one of my local, and by local, I mean within a 100-mile radius, yarn shop last weekend, but it did not work out. So I went to Joann's instead, which, is less than 5 minutes away. So what did I get there? I got there 3 skeins of Patton's Classic Wool in winter white, their standard worsted weight yarn, very, very workhorsey. Because I wanted to play around with dyeing, and I didn't want to use my nice merino for what I was just kind of playing around with in case it's kind of crap. Although, in terms of the expense per skein, it's about the same. I also picked up a skein of Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool. Again, this is 2 skeins of yarn for about $12, which is about the same as a 100-gram skein of yarn for $5 or $6. So it's really the only thing. It's not less expensive to buy these skeins of yarn from Joann's than it would be to go to some of my bare yarn suppliers online. It's just often with those bare yarn suppliers, you have to buy in bulk, or if you don't have to buy in bulk, then you're waiting for our less than stellar postal service to get it to you. So there is all of that. When you want immediate gratification, you go to something a little closer and maybe spend a little more, but sometimes not. But you also don't get the level of quality, because Joann's and Michael's are not known for as a bare yarn source. Okay, anyway, enough about that. The other thing I picked up was the Lion Brand 24/7 cotton yarn. This is a mercerized cotton. And I got them in the colors of ecru and navy. I plan on doing some dish towels with these. I have some others, something extremely similar from Knit Picks that I bought last year. Again, navy, and this one is I don't remember what the colorway was, but it's a just sort of a tan color. But these are the cotton linen blend from Knit Picks, and these are in DK. This is in worsted. These are 50-gram skeins. Yes, these are 50-gram skeins. These are 100-gram skeins, and probably about the same price. This feels really lovely. Of course, it's very cotton. It's 100% mercerized cotton, so it's a bit smoother and um, easier to work with than, say, your standard, sugar and cream type of yarn. Which I do have a big thing of that, and I am working on a dishcloth even as we speak, and I didn't include it in my works in progress because I often don't when I'm just doing a dishcloth. But here's my cone of dishcloth yarn and my dishcloth. Yay! Just a standard linen stitch dishcloth, which hold up really nicely for the things that I like to do with them, which is actually, I keep it at the kitchen sink and do a lot of washing with my dishcloths. They're very utilitarian for me. What else have I picked up? That's it. That's it for my acquisitions. I know, not very exciting. I'm not very thrilled about it either. In the future, I promise it's gonna get better. If my husband doesn't spend all my money and I get to spend some of it on my own frivolous needs, that'll be great. Okay, that's pretty much it in terms of fiber. Not much else going on. So what else have I been up to other than, outside of my fiber world? Well, as I said earlier, working 40 hours a week now. This is wonderful. It's great. It brings in the paycheck. It keeps the house over my head, food in my belly, clothes on my back. Those are the good things. And luckily, I also enjoy the work. But it has brought about a new normal. I spent almost a full year out of work. It was almost exactly 11 months. It was 1 year from paycheck to paycheck. Luckily, I had a severance from my last job, which I had spent a great number of years at. So that allowed me to survive the COVID period and my unemployment period. But it was dramatically running out. So that is to say, there is a new normal. My normal of 2020 was to get up, job search in the morning, piddle around the house, and knit in the afternoon, and things of that nature. So now the new normal is get up around 6 o'clock in the morning, prepare myself. I actually do now shower on a daily basis, which is something that I had gotten out of the habit of doing. I do put on real clothing. I don't put on sweatpants, although I am wearing sleep pants right now on the lower half. Upper half is business. So I get dressed. I come into my office, which is also this craft room. I set my knitting aside and bring out my work computer and do my work throughout the day at about I start at about 7:30 in the morning, go to about 4:30 in the afternoon, give or take a half hour to an hour here or there. Sometimes I start at 7. In terms of what I do, in terms of me doing work, I'm on a salary, so it's not like I have to clock in. So I do my job, 8 to 9 hours a day, and then as soon as work is over, cook the meal for our little pod of 4 people, the 3 people that live in my home, myself, my spouse, and our nephew, and our neighbor lady, who we make sure eats because she's struggles with diabetes and is a widow, and so she's relatively recent, and so she forgets to eat, which isn't good for her blood sugar. So we make sure she eats every day, at least dinner. So I cook the meal for us. Luckily, my nephew does the cleanup from that, so I don't have to worry too much about that. But I do have to plan the meal at some point during the day, put out the food so it's thawed and ready for me to prepare. If it were not for the Instapot, I'm not sure that we would eat every day until 9 o'clock. But as it is, I've been able to keep our dinner schedule at 6 o'clock on the dot most nights. There's only been a couple of times that I've been like, nope, ain't gonna work. It's a Chipotle night or it's a pizza night. But only had to do that. I've only done that once so far. And it's nice to have money in the bank to be able to do that, have that as an option. So many other people do not have that option still. So there's that. So that's my new normal. The weekend is, of course, today, Shabbat. It's podcast day every other week. On the other weeks, I try to produce a dyeing video. So at some point in that 2-week period, I try to dye some yarn, record that up, and get that produced and put on YouTube. So it's almost like having 3 jobs. I have my workaday job, which actually pays the bills and puts food on the table. I have my household job, which is cooking and keeping up after myself, which is sometimes kind of a hard job. And then there's my my knitting world, my fiber world job, which is a passion, really, not a job. It's certainly not work, but it is certainly something I have to plan and to be able to execute on it. And I enjoy planning it, and I enjoy doing it. I am committed to continuing to produce these videos, if not for you, then for me. It's a way for me to express my joy of this hobby, of this passion of knitting and fiber arts, especially in this time of when we can't get out and be with each other, either going to yarn events or just popping into the local yarn store to commiserate with other fiber artists in person, face to face, eye to eye, breathing the same air. It will be nice when we can do that again. And even when we can do that again, I love the community here online. And so I want to continue engaging with you all, even as you engage with me. So there's that. That's my new normal. What else have I been up to? Last night, we watched Coming to America on Amazon Prime. Absolutely delightful. I remember the original. Oops, not that one. This one. Yes. Coming to America, the sequel, Coming to America 2, the sequel to Coming to America, which was released in 1988. That's a number of years back. So this movie picks up with the Eddie Murphy prince on the verge of becoming king, and discovering that, of course, he only has a family of daughters with along with his wife, no sons, and only the son can ascend to the throne, so he has no heir. So he learns of a child that he had when he was in America last time. And so this movie is about the journey to find him, connect with him, and really, it's almost more about this young prince and his discovery of himself in this new world that he is thrust into. And for the Eddie Murphy character, a rediscovery of himself and what he used to stand for and used to believe in. So, lovely movie, great themes, absolutely hysterical, lots of return characters, lots of really good music from the period, from the 80s or the late 80s, and also some current artists, of which I have no idea who they were, but fun nonetheless. So I highly recommend it, especially for those of you who may be nostalgic for lighthearted frivolity that this movie is. So definitely check it out on Amazon Prime. It was a lot of fun. So, what I want to talk about this week, other than the things that I've already talked about, is, of course, I don't have class time right now, but so right now what I'm doing is going into and discussing dyers that I follow, or in this case, designers that I follow and like, either on YouTube or Ravelry or Instagram, wherever I might find these folks and follow them. So this week I want to talk about and feature a designer which I have actually knit some of his designs, at least one of his designs, and have several others in my queue. For those of you who may not recognize this handsome visage, this is Josh Rix Rabinski, aka the also known as Rebel Pup Knits. He is a self-described color-obsessed knitter and designer from Minnesota. A self-taught as a knitter and as a knitting designer. And a lot of his designs really make use of short row shaping, color, lines, lots of garter stitch. Some similarities there with him and Stephen West, but what I like about Josh's designs is they do a lot of geometric have a lot of geometric interest, as well as oftentimes some color punches that are a little more. His color palette is a little more traditional, as you can see in this particular example. Although he can get quite colorful in his example choices for his designs. So I do want to pop in and take a look at his page on Ravelry. So let me come over here and take a look at this. He has some lovely different patterns that he has going on. His most recent ones are on this top row. Here's the broadband, which is a very colorful shawl. It is a DK weight shawl. It does have a couple of versions, and so the yardage can be somewhat different for the two. Really pretty. I like how it uses some chevron activity. So there's interesting stitch definition in this, as well as a fun color play. Um, some of the things that that I have, one of the patterns that I've done of his in the past um, was really delightful. I had a lot of fun with it. Is called Turbulence. It uses 3 skeins of fingering weight yarn in like a dark color, a medium shaded color, and a light color, or potentially a neutral. So you could have a dark shade, light shade, and then a neutral that would really set this off as a very interesting shawl. It's basically triangular, but has some interesting shaping and striping to it, which makes it very, very fun. And a very interesting knit to make use of. I have also knit recently. Do I see it? Yes, here it is. I've recently knit Tsunami. Oh, no, it wasn't Tsunami. It was close to that, though. It was almost that name. Oh, well, I've knit another one of his, and I can't remember what it was called. Let's see if I can look on the next page. Oh, well, not coming to... Oh, Typhoon. That's the one I've knit. Which is a very interesting construction as well, where these center stripes is using self-striping yarn, but so the solid stripe is in garter stitch, just standard garter stitch, not a kind of a, not a wedge, but a half circle. But then the striped section is knit on the bias, and then you switch back to garter stitch, standard garter stitch, which is just up and down, and then again bias. So very, very interesting construction, lots of fun to knit, relatively simple to memorize and do. But again, his patterns are well written, easy to understand, and they do come out as just really lovely projects. So I have several of his patterns that I'm wanting to do. Like this is a fingering weight pattern in 3 different colors. Basically, a main color and 2 minis is what I think it would take in terms of yardage and color types. But I like his use of color, his use of design and shaping, and doing some things that are somewhat unexpected with basic triangular shawls. So I highly recommend Rebel Pup Knits, or also known as Josh Ricks Rabinski. I gotta say his name right. So yes, check him out on Ravelry. Download, purchase some of his patterns, try them out. They are a lot of fun. I'm hoping at some point in the coming year to potentially do a knit along around his designs. We'll see if I actually get to that point. Maybe I'll do that based on one of 2 factors. I reach a certain number of subscribers to this channel. Subscribe now. Or the anniversary of my starting this podcast, which is coming up at the beginning of summer. So yeah, consider that for the future, that there will probably be a knit along, and it will probably be around his patterns, because I purchased several that I have not cast on and don't have the yarn for, and so I have to get my ducks in a row before I even consider moving that direction. So consider that as a warning that this might be coming. So yes, check him out. He's on Instagram. He's of course here on Ravelry as Rebel Pup Knits. He is on Instagram as Rebel Pup Knits as well. So be sure to check him out. I'll have the link to his Ravelry page, design page below in the show notes, along with links to any other patterns that I have discussed. Other things that I like most of my favorite podcasts I have listed down there. So be sure and check out any of them. Tell them I sent you, or not. I don't care. Anyway. Okay. So that is that. That brings us to the close of another episode. Episode 18. 18 meaning chai in Hebrew, which means life. Makes me think of the phrase living the chai life, which is living the life. So yeah, I actually, now having a job, and having other big things changing in our country and in our world with politics shifting and a vaccine for the COVID-19 virus rolling out to many people. I am not on that list yet. As soon as I'm able to get it, I will. But unfortunately, here in Wichita, things are going very slowly in terms of a rollout. So as soon as I can, I will be getting that shot. Anyway, the life, being able to live the life is slowly coming back. And that is a very good thing. And I hope that you all are finding the new year, which is now almost one quarter over. I hope you're finding the ability to live a new life, somewhat different from last year. Even though things are not back to normal, I hope you find a new sense of normalcy that is better than last year's. Mine is getting better, and I am so thankful to whatever powers are out there for moving things in such a way that this is the case. So, thank you for joining me today. Click like if you enjoyed this episode. Click subscribe if you like what you're finding on this channel. And if you do subscribe, consider clicking on that little bell icon next to the subscribe button. That bell icon will give you the ability to be informed of when I upload new content. All right, now that you have done that, you can find me on social media. I do have a Facebook page called GreatScott Knitting. You can just do a search for it and you'll find me. I'm on Instagram as GreatScott Knitting. I'm in Ravelry as GreatScott KCMO. There's also a Ravelry group page there, although I must sadly admit I have not been doing much with that page yet. But with the potential of having a knit along, I'll probably be doing some aspects with that Ravelry group around that. So, with all that being said, thank you again for joining, and may you have peace in your home and the fullness of joy for all who dwell there.